So why, if these things are so obvious to everyone else, why aren't they obvious to the person with substance use disorder? Well, for the individual with substance use disorder, remember what we learned in the first module, that addiction behavior is a means of survival. And that all of my behaviors that I have or had while I was under the influence of active using, when I discontinue use, those behaviors are still there and they serve as cues to me to return to that old pattern of behavior, to repeat that behavior. Repair to the brain functioning takes time. To reestablish the hedonic set point, it takes a long period of time. It takes regular and consistent replacement of old patterns of behavior with new patterns of behavior to reestablish the neural pathways in the brain. Normal chemical rate restoration takes time. For me to reinstate my body to its normal biological dopamine chemical release functioning, it doesn't happen overnight. You've got to be thinking about, my brain has literally been affected by the alcohol consumption or the drug consumption over however long a period of time I used it for. And they say for how long it took you to walk into the woods, it's going to take you half as long to walk out of the woods. Some say it's going to take you twice as long to walk out of the woods. Sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. And we want to be careful not to cookie cutter everyone with substance use disorder. Just because a person that you know achieved sustainable recovery in a matter of 1 year and is now living a healthy lifestyle 4 years later, that doesn't mean it's going to be the same journey for everyone else. Each person is a unique individual and it's not a one size fits all. All behavior change must be motivated from the individual. What that means is give the person the locus of control. Man or woman convinced against their will is of the same opinion still. You cannot convince somebody to do something they don't willingly want to do. If you do, it's a temporary fix. It's a Band-Aid. Behavior change is hard for everyone. Let's stop looking at addiction and substance use disorder behavior change as a moral failing and as a choice. And moreover, let's look at it as this is human nature. And we all struggle with behavior change, especially those with substance use disorder. Many go through stages of change multiple times before achieving successful behavior change. You might go back to that first slide where I asked you, do you have a goal that you attempted? Did you succeed the first time around? Or did it take you multiple attempts? I'm guessing many of you are going to say it took me multiple attempts, Ginger. And that's more the rule than the exception. Think about that with substance use disorder. Instead of thinking that, oh my gosh, they return to use again, they're never going to get there, they're losers, they keep making these choices. Think about it as human behavior, right? Not succeeding the first time around is not uncommon to anyone in this world, but somehow we adapt it to substance use disorder as an expectation. No two people change at the same pace. Ability and resources is essential for successful behavior change. Without the support, without a plan, without guidance, without perhaps finances, the chances of successful behavior change reduce significantly. How do we break the cycle of behavior change, negative behaviors, or substance use disorder? In substance use, we have a cue. I once knew this gentleman. I told you earlier in module 1 about my going to the grocery store at 10 o'clock. And I had to change that behavior to go at 8 o'clock when I knew that the liquor store wasn't open. Once I did that long enough, my ritual or my routine that was mapped out in my head changed organically. But we have to force it. We have to do it intentionally, consistently, until it becomes organic and second nature. So we start with a cue. There was a gentleman that I was working with once, and he told me that every time he goes to Walmart, he feels this crazy urge to go buy heroin. And we got to the bottom of it, and it turned out that his dealer actually worked at Walmart. So every time he went to Walmart, he associated that with buying drugs. So his cue, for example, was going to Walmart. That triggered his craving, the trigger that tells you which brain routine to use. His craving said, I need drugs, I need survival. He went and bought heroin, he used heroin, the brain was satisfied, it felt the reward. How do we break the cycle? We've got to replace the old patterns of behavior with new patterns of behavior. We must understand that not just for people with substance use disorder, even though this is critical, it's also for people who want to have any other behavior change. What pattern of behavior are you going to replace with the one that you're wanting to change? This gentleman decided that his best alternative was to shop on Amazon. He was either going to go to the regular grocery store and shop on Amazon until he became stable enough, which happened over a year. He stayed away from Walmart for a year, that he could actually take a step towards moving back towards going to Walmart. I want to look at guilt and shame with behavior change. So guilt is defined as a feeling of psychological discomfort about something we've done that is objectively wrong. So let's just say an example of healthy guilt might be something like, you haven't done laundry for a week. And you think, oh my goodness, I'm overworked. I feel horrible about not having done my laundry. But you know what? I've had a really busy week. It's okay. And then you can take healthy guilt and move it into unhealthy guilt, which is a feeling of psychological discomfort about something we've done against our irrationally high standards. So maybe now it's been 2 weeks since you've done your laundry. And what started out as a healthy guilt, where you were giving yourself space to not do your laundry, turns into, I really need to do my laundry. I don't know what is wrong with me. Why am I so lazy? I do this every month where I go 2 to 3 weeks without laundry, and then it gets to the last week and I have to rush around and do 20 loads of laundry. I don't know why I do this to myself. Unhealthy guilt. Shame, we can move from unhealthy guilt to shame, an intensely painful feeling of being fundamentally flawed. I've now done this pattern of behavior for over a year. It's actually more my routine than it is not my routine, where I wait 3 weeks to do my laundry. It makes me late for work because I never have any clean clothes. I'm finding myself putting on dirty clothes and trying to brush off any stains or residue that was there from the previous wear. And my self-talk becomes even more demeaning. I am such a loser. I cannot even manage life. I don't know how I'm going to get through the rest of my life if I can't even manage to do my laundry. If I can't manage to do my laundry, how can I take on anything else in life? How can I have a family? How can I take care of anybody else? So you can hear the self-talk, the negative self-talk that increases as we shift from healthy guilt to an unhealthy guilt to shame. And this is what happens with folks with substance use disorder who start out, most of us do, start out as a experimental phase. You're trying a drink or a drug, or maybe you're a social drinker, and maybe one day you just drank too much. Or maybe you're smoking marijuana and you're only smoking once or twice a week, and you move to more regular use, like every day. You start to have this self-talk feedback loop, which becomes more and more negative, and you continue, and it perpetuates as your behaviors stay the same or continue to increase in use. Your unhealthy guilt, negative self-talk loop goes into deep-seated, fundamentally flawed, I'm a loser, I'm not worth it, there's no way out, self-talk shame. Guilt and shame, a self-conscious emotion. Shame informs us of an internal state of inadequacy. Compared to what? Compared to what messaging? The messaging we've heard in society, right? unworthiness, dishonor, regret, or disconnection. Shame is said to be the lowest possible human emotion. Shaming people into a behavior change does not work. It only makes them feel more worthless, more like a failure, more like a loser. Unlike guilt, which is the feeling of doing something wrong, shame is the feeling of being something wrong. Now we'll move into social determinants of health. And social determinants of health are deemed to be this critical components in life that help each one of us establish and maintain a healthy, functional, productive life. Education, both access and quality. Healthcare, both access and quality. Neighborhood, family environment, social and community connections, economic stability. Now, what happens with substance use disorder is, as a result of the behaviors, many often end up losing all of these very important determinants of health. Some folks who started early with their substance use may not have any high school diploma. They certainly probably don't have healthcare or access to quality healthcare. Chances are they don't have any money, and whatever job they have might be low wage, and they're using it for drug use. It's possible that they've been booted out of their stable living environment, whatever it was, and that their friends and family have disowned them, and that the only social connections they have now is their drug dealer and the people that they use with. These are called resources in the ARM model. In the absence of the R, resource, a person's motivation and their ability to see the reward decreases significantly. There is no way out. It is easier for me to use than it is to try to navigate through these systems, to try to restore the families, the wreckage of my past, to try to get a job. It's too hard. It's easier to use. Social determinants of health are resources and ability. Let's just say, for example, you have somebody that is unhoused. Maybe they're jobless. Maybe their children were removed from child welfare for their safety. Maybe they're lacking in social skills because they started drug use early on. Maybe they have a history of trauma, and maybe they have very little clothing because they're living in their car and the clothing that they have isn't clean. And they're eating at the soup kitchen 3 times a week when their soup kitchen is open. The success rates for recovery are low. We meet people in treatment centers coming out of prisons that are very low on the social determinants of health rating scale. And yet we expect them to embrace this behavior change that is being imposed on them unwillingly, and yet the resources aren't there to support them. What can happen to an individual, this doesn't happen to all individuals, but it can happen to some individuals, is that when they're being forced into looking for a job, and maybe they've never held a job before, maybe they're forced into getting a GED, or maybe they're being forced into going to the food shelter to get food, and they're just so uncomfortable that they experience what's called adjustment disorder. And so what we want to be thinking about as a society and as human service professionals is, how heavy are we coming down on these folks? And how high are our expectations for them to deliver behavior change almost instantaneously, because we can actually send them through our own good intentions into another behavioral health condition called adjustment disorder.
Hey there, this is Ginger. I hope you're learning a lot from this series. I'm asking for your help in supporting my tireless efforts. There's a few ways in which you can support me. Tell your friends about this video series, subscribe and like each video here on YouTube down below, make a donation on my website, or invite me to deliver this training in person. Together, we can all be part of the solution. Hope to see you soon, and thank you.